Alright, welcome back to the Honor of King tier list. This tier list will be for Marksman. And in order to remove all of the heroes that I already talked about, I've created a clash only role to just encompass all the heroes that I've already talked about. Some heroes like Lam can be played both in the clash lane and in the jungle, so I've placed those heroes back into this pool over here, this common pool. Alright, this tier list will be relatively short because it's for Marksman, and there's not a lot of Marksman in the game. Let's talk about the alessio first. Alright, there's very few Marksman in the game, so this will be relatively quick. Alessio, okay, when I'm thinking about Marksman, right, I think of survivability. That's the number one criteria. Second, if it's consistent damage dealing potential, and his burst damage potential. And the third is whether he has AoE skills, whether he has good teamfight potential due to his AoE skills, due to his CC skills. Alright, so third is teamfight potential. Fourth is early game and lane clear in the early game, because in the late game the marksmen all have very good lane clear. So in the early game you have good lane clear, and if you have some kind of AoE skills to deal with the minion wave, that would be great. I think that's all the criteria for a marksman to have. In general, non-over reliance on your support. That's also another important criteria. So for Alessio, his early game is very strong, but his late game is sort of lacking. His late game damage potential is lacking. That's because his ultimate is not really suited for his kit, I would say. His ultimate is the sort of weakest link here, because his ultimate it's sort of a disengage skill more than a damage dealing skill. Because honestly, people don't build a lot of AD items on him, people build crit items on him. So his AD is pretty lacking, and before you actually get the physical penetration item, your ultimate will not be able to do a lot of damage. So also, usually instead of the 40% pierce item on him, people build the 30% pierce marksman item on him, which gives him not that much pierce and not that much AD damage. So his ultimate overall just doesn't sync well with his kit. But otherwise his other skills are pretty serviceable, and at least he has a sort of a dash skill to move over obstacles. So I think I'll give him a situational skill. Situational tier. I would say his weakness is he doesn't excel in any strong. He doesn't have any strong suit. His smoke bomb is like whatever. His smoke bomb gives him a little bit of mobility, but definitely not compared to some of the other marksmen out there. So he has decent mobility. His damage is also somewhat decent thanks to his S1 power up, but it's nothing to really talk about, nothing to be excited about. Let's see. He's not too reliant on the support thanks to his smoke bomb and his ultimate, but his ultimate has a very long cooldown, so usually he's quite reliant on his smoke bomb only. His smoke bomb also, to be fair, in the early game has a sort of a relatively long cooldown, unless you go cooldown boots on him. So but he has a decent amount of wave clear thanks to his AoE S1 skill, and in the early game is also pretty strong. His power spike comes at level 4, between level 4 and level 8. After he gets his ultimate does a fair bit of damage in the early game before people get their defenses up. So in the late game, his ultimate pretty much does no damage. You need to, all your damage come from your S1 and S2, not your S2, your auto attacks. And his ultimate is just there as a disengage tool, or a tool to finish off the enemy while retreating back into a safe spot. So because of that, he's either at the bottom of A tier or highest B tier. I think I'll put him the highest B tier. He's not A tier material yet. Right, next will be arli. I would say she's at the bottom of S tier. Definitely one of the more meta heroes that you often see in pick mode. Very reliant, dependent on the handler skill as well. The problem with arli is that he's way too reliant on the handler skill. If you're super well versed in this hero, she can be extremely powerful, but the overall skill level is not high enough to operate her well, I would say. The average skill level for arli is pretty low. In the hands of a good player, she is definitely the strongest marksman out there. But we are talking about consistency here. Definitely, when she pops off, she'll go crazy. She easily can be the best marksman out there if she does pop off. But when we are talking about consistency, right, she's not that consistent. But her strong suit is that she does an insane amount of damage at the start, and thanks to her fury skill, she doesn't need to bring dash flicker because of her multiple dashes. And she, well, it's not really a dash, it's a positioning skill, but we'll just call it a dash. So because of her multiple dashes, she don't need flicker. She can use either Purify or Fury. I see a lot of people building Fury where they should go Purify, but because of her option to go for either, that makes her super strong. The early game damage is extremely strong as well, because her skill does magic damage, and in the early game, people have very low magic damage, right? That magic defense, and people wouldn't really build magic defense compared to physical defense items. So that's why early game is like super strong. Also, I think one thing that people overlook on her is her S2. You can use your S2 to block a lot of attacks out there, including Gun and Mo's ultimate. Gun and Mo's swords, not really its ultimate. Loong's and Power S1, you can block that as well. Loong's, any skill of Loong's, you can block those. Lady Zhen's skill can block those. So far, the only hero that not the only hero, but the hero that can counter her the most is Liang, because Liang's skill plays like a barrier on the map itself. It's not really like a skill that casts forward, so she can't really block those kind of skills. So I find it very easy to deal with her using Liang. And when she's used as S1 and charged forward, she's also quite easily CC with Liang's ultimate. That's why I find Liang to be a good counter to her. But overall, she's not reliant on the support. Her early game is crazy, and she has a lot of survivability if you play her skills well. The thing is, player play too aggressively with her. If you play defensively with her, right, I think she'll be a very strong pick. But a lot of players play way too aggressively with her. You can only play aggressively with her after you get the thing that gives you an attack range item. I forgot what the item name is called. Honestly, I don't know any of the item's English name, but in Chinese name it's called 逐日之弓, which means I don't know how to direct translate it, but it's the item that gives you more attack range. So once you get the item, you can pop off with arli. But before that, right, I find people playing way too aggressively with arli than they should. Easily one of the top marksmen out there because of very unique S2 skill and a very unique positioning skill and her strong overall damage in the early game. In the early game, her damage is not low as well, but it's lower compared to some other marksmen, but overall it's still pretty strong. Similar, comparable to a lot of the other marksmen out there. So because of having no counters, I would say she's over here. Well, she does have one counter, which is Liang, but Liang is a counter to a lot of other heroes as well, so I can't use that as a benchmark. So I'll put her over here. Let's see, consort you. I would say maybe be below Alessio. Yes, I actually find consort you lower than Alessio. Her early game damage potential is less than Alessio's, I would say. Her level 4 ultimate barely does any damage because you don't build penetration and a lot of AD item at the start. You generally build attack speed and also crit item at the start. So she suffers from the same problem as Alessio in that her early game ultimate does. Actually no, early game Alessio damage does a lot more damage compared to consort you. Consort U's ultimate does that a negligible amount of damage early game, and the late game it does a negligible amount of damage as well, as compared to auto attacks. So it's really just there for her positioning, as a positioning skill. Because the ultimate is pretty much the only dash skill. You pretty much have to use it to sort of disengage from assassin. She's pretty weak to magic attack, but that doesn't matter in the late game where you build the item that gives you a bunch of magic defense and magic shield. I highly recommend the item on consort U. I'm actually like I have a server best with consort U also, and so I have some experience with her. I know that her early game is too weak. She's too reliant on Marksman. On her support early game. In the late game, she is very good against enemy assassin, but it's still not good against tanky clash laners, against warriors. So if a warrior can tank through your ultimate, tank through your S2, then and still sort of stick to you, then after you use your ultimate, right, it's very difficult for you to get away because you don't have any movement skill after that. If you use your S2 just to run away, then some other, because of S2's long cooldown, right, some other enemy unit can jump onto you and immediately just burst you down. So she's not that consistent, I would say. In low elo, she's very good against assassin because assassin, they don't know how to bait her skills out, so they'll just all in onto you. You use your S2 immediately, just destroy them. But in high elo, people know how to bait your S2. Especially me, when I play Nakalulu, my favorite jungler is Nakalulu. I'll use S1 onto you while I'm using my S3, and then when I immediately see you using your S2, I will just fly around you, but I will just like hover around you until your S2 ends, and then I will just jump onto you, and then you will immediately die because you have no defense against me. I will not get close to you because I know that if she uses her ultimate, if I get close to her, you use her as an ultimate, it acts as a positioning skill. But if I don't ever get close to her, then she won't be able to use ultimate as a positioning skill. Sure, she'll get out onto me, but then she'll go back to her original position, because in order for ultimate to be a position skill, you need to be overlapping the enemy's position. So she's like a noob stomper, but in high elo, as long as people know how to play around the S2 and the ultimate. So yeah, she's not that great. She is great against Darty, I have to say, because when you see the S2 Darty S2 coming towards you, just use your ultimate on her, because when the Darty is in range of using S2 on you, she'll also be in the range of consort use S3. So just out onto her, you will be CC immune during that time. You can use this trick in order to sort of dodge a lot of CC skills out there, such as definitely the prime CC skill that I'm thinking of is Darty's S2. What other S2 are there? I guess Xiao Qiao S2. If you can sort of time it properly, when Xiao Qiao jumps onto you, right, you can use your ultimate onto Xiao Qiao to dodge her S2. So Xiao Qiao will be able to burst you down fairly easily without any magic defense item. But if you do have a magic defense item, you can actually always win against Xiao Qiao. And the trick is to just hold off on your ultimate until you see that circle below you. Then you use your ultimate immediately on the Xiao Qiao. And during that time, you will be CC immune, so the Xiao Qiao won't be able to hit you. No, actually, no, the Xiao Qiao, I don't know if the S2 can actually CC you, because I don't know if the system judged that consort U is on the spot itself. I don't think she's on the spot itself. I think she's jumping towards the Xiao Qiao, because it's not like a 3D game, right? I think instead of jumping up, she's jumping forward, so you'll be able to avoid Xiao Qiao's S2 damage as well. So once you do that, right, Xiao Qiao will just get wrecked by you. That's a very handy tip that I have while using consort U. But again, she's way too scared of warriors. She's good against assassins, but especially low elo assassins. But she is pretty scared of any melee units that build a few defense items on them. Like even the Nakalulu with 2 defense items can easily destroy a consort U. In any phase, even in the late game, a Nakalulu can destroy a consort U. The trick is just to bait our S2. But once you know that, she is not that great. Okay. Also, her early game absolutely sucks. Without any crit items, without any attack speed items, she's kind of sucks. Okay, let's go to the next one. I would say magic attack units, mages, is not a good counter to her. Because when I play as consort U, if I see the enemy pick a lot of mages, I will just build some magic defense items. you need warriors to counter her, I would say. The common misconception is to use a lot of magic damage dealing units against her. Yes, that could work in the early game, but I would just build a few magic defense items, and then I just basically need to watch out for the only few AD units left in the game and use my S2 for them. So the correct way to deal with consort U, right, is you use warriors rather than mages. Let's see. Let's talk about this next. Oh, direnjie. Direnjie is here maybe. His Purify makes him a very good pick against certain team compositions. I would say he's the definition of a situational hero. If you go against like a Ice Princess, I don't know, Frost Princess, I don't know what's her name called in English, but if you go against a Frost Princess, somebody with a very long CC skill, you can use your Purify to immediately purify those skills. Your S2 to purify those skills. You don't really need like Purify. So against like a not Enzo, again a baili, the guy with a hook, you can use your S2 to actually negate his hook, to purify his hook, and then just wail on him using your S1. So because of its inbuilt S2, right, makes him super versatile against a lot of composition out there who are super reliant on CC skills. Like the new hero Shi, he can use his S2 to negate the Shi's S1 as well, S1 pull. So yeah, any situation where you need a purifier, right, direnjie will be a good pick. And his ultimate also lowers the enemy defense by quite a bit. So if you can land your ultimate consistently, it's actually a very good marksman. I'll go maybe the bottom of 8 here. He has no glaring weakness. I guess his only weakness is that his damage, because people build tank item on him, his damage potential late game is garbage. And he's just there as a utility hero because he does a lot of slow. And he's also not very easily killable thanks to him being super tanky and his inbuilt purify skill. So he's a definition of a marksman hero that is mediocre in every field, and has no count, but still has no counter. Alright, let's move on to the next marksman hero. Okay, we'll talk about Erin next. I think the next marksman. Erin, I would say I've not seen enough of her to comment, man. Oh man, the few Erin hero that I've seen are pretty horrible. But I think Erin is quite a strong pick against certain composition. I would say she's below consort U. The problem is her damage potential is way too lacking compared to all the other marksmen. She might be the marksman deal the least amount of damage, but she is very hard to kill her because she can build the August 1 item on her to give her a lot of defenses. She can build AP item on her and still deal physical damage. So she's pretty flexible. You can use her as a mage and you can use her as an AD. But if you use her as an AD, her damage potential is lacking. Her skills give her a decent amount of survivability, but still not much compared to the other marksmen that I'm going to show. So she's just super mediocre, I would say. And she does her damage is even less than mediocre. Her damage is bad. So that's why maybe at the bottom of B tier, I would say. Garo, I would say is man, she's a hero that can either do very well or very badly. She's super easily gankable because she has no dasher skill, and I think unless you have super good map awareness, right, she's not going to do well in solo queue. Yeah, she's too inconsistent. Your map awareness needs to be crazy in order to use Garo. And if your map awareness is crazy, right, then a lot of other heroes are better suited than Garo. Not having any dash is really bad, especially in solo queue, where your support will just ignore you. She's way too reliant on the support. Yeah, I would say, is she less than Erin? I don't think she's less than Erin. I'll say something like this for now. I might push them down to a C tier later on. Let's see, houyi is next. Yeah, the thing about Garo is that her damage is okay. I mean, her damage is good actually. Her range is good. Her teamfight potential is good because she can use her slow as long as she lands a crit on the enemy. The problem is that she's way too easily ganked and way too easily killed by assassin. That is too big of a weakness to justify any higher than B rank, B tier. Next will be houyi. Houyi, I would say is okay. Definitely not here. Yeah, I'm surprised anybody put it here. I would say he's here. He has less survivability by consort U, but he has one major advantage in that his late game potential is very good, comparable to Garo. His late game damage is better than Garo, especially when he gets his attack range item up. He's going to hit like crazy. But the thing about his standout area of him is that he has a very versatile ultimate. His ultimate is, if he lands his ultimate, he's able to win a team fight from afar. So he doesn't even need to be there in the team fight. He just needs to land his ultimate properly. But it's not very consistent, I would say, because he doesn't build any CD item on himself. So his ultimate has a long cooldown. You can go CD boots on him, and you can go a bunch of defensive CD items on him. I've seen people try that as well. So I would say you can play him as both a utility hero or a damage dealing hero. In high elo, usually he does not build crit and go mainly for utility items that give slow and build a bit of defensive item. So he's just there to spam his ultimate. But because his ultimate is so versatile and so sort of crucial in a team fight, I'll put him here. But again, he suffers from the same problem as Garo in that he has no protection ability and is highly dependent on his support. He has no way to get away from assassins. But what he does better than Garo is that he has the attack damage, late game attack damage potential in team fights, and also he has a standout area that is his ultimate. Alright, that's why I can put him above Garo. Alright, next will be Fang. I'll say he's here. Maybe above consort U, but above consort U. Actually, never mind, let's put Erin here. Fang basically has no counter. He's a very mediocre hero, just like direnjie over here. His damage is somewhat lacking compared to all the other marksmen out there. He has quite a good amount of burst damage thanks to his S1, S2. But his consistent damage might be the lowest of every marksman out there. His ability to deal consistent damage is very low. He's good against assassins because of his S2 and his S1. The assassin, he's able to counter attack on a lot of assassins out there, and he has an inbuilt map hack, right? So every 6 seconds he gets a passive that allows him to see around him. So he's good against Lanling units, invisible unit like Lanling, Gui, etc. The problem with him is just he's too mediocre in all fields. He has survivability, definitely, yes. He has his S2. He can use his S2 to negate a lot of CC skills, a lot of damage skills, because when you're rolling, you are invulnerable. But you need to time it very well. If you use your S2, then that's one thing, you need to time it well. And the other thing is that if you use the S2 as your defensive skill, then your ability to deal consistent damage is even lower. As the S2 has a very long cooldown. So some of the marksmen that are here is because they have the damage while also having some survivability skill. For Yuan Fang, right, he has the survivability skill, but it doesn't have the damage, and having damage is still pretty important for a marksman, even in solo queue. So I would say because of his extremely lacking consistent ability to deal consistent damage, I have to put him here, either here or here. He can't really deal with tanks at all. He need to pretty much disengage from tank. But because of the solo queue nature, right, I would say he's above consort U. He probably fare better in consort U in solo queue where your support just disregards you. Alright. Next will be Huangzong. I think we'll talk about Huangzong last because it's gonna be pretty controversial. Let's talk about Lady Sun. Oh my god, Lady Sun is also controversial. How many Marksman? Huangzong, Lady Sun, Luban, this guy. Oh, actually that's it for the Marksman. Alright, let's start with Lady Sun then. Lady Sun I'll put here, or maybe here. Yeah, I don't know why she's so popular in high elo. She does very little consistent damage. She does a huge amount of burst damage if you can land your S2. That is if you can land your S2 to break the enemy's physical defense. But if you don't land your S2, right, she has to disengage. And that is quite inconsistent in my opinion. You can use your S1 as a skill to get away from the enemy, because you get a speed boost when there's an enemy unit near you, but the range is fairly short. Also, her S1 is going to be on long cooldown. She also has a shorter attack range that all the other marksmen out there to compensate for a long range on her S1. Also, her over-reliance on her S2 to land, I can't put her any higher than here. Personally, I think she's a pretty weak marksman, but she's still very popular even in high elo. So I really don't understand. She's a hero that I know will be controversial, but in my personal opinion, she should be here. She would be here. I don't think she's any better than these two guys out there. Okay, next will be, a lot of people rate her super highly. I just don't understand it. I never understood it. Next will be Loong. I play Loong a lot. If you watch my streams, I play Loong probably the most among all the marksmen out there, and I think it's absolutely S tier, at the top of the S tier, the strongest marksman right now. He has a lower skill ceiling than arli. Arli can pop off better than him, but arli is a lot less consistent than Loong. As long as you have a player with okay skills, like just play like tank games on him, and then have some basic map awareness, and you can play a Loong as well as like a arli with a lot of practice. His skills are super easy to use. You don't really have to consider so many things compared to arli, so you can look at the minimap a lot more, and like you don't need to multitask unlike arli where you have to look at the minimap and your umbrella, the position on your umbrella at the same time. He's a lot more easy to pilot because of that. His ultimate gives him an absolutely insane disengage skill. He can easily just all in or somebody and just use his ultimate to get away while all his skills are on cooldown. While you are in dragon in flight, right, you can also use your double raid passive, and then when you land again, right, you can use your 2A 3A 2A 1A 3A combo again and do massive amount of damage. Also, his S3, right, is both a mobility skill and also like a CC skill, a disengage skill. If the enemy assassin jump onto you, right, just use your S3 and then your auto attack, empower auto attack, and then they will be sort of pushed away so far from you that you can disengage very easily, because your S3 also gives you a speed boost. So you can just use that combo as long as you save your S3. You don't randomly spam your S3. You only use your S1, S2, and T5, and your S3 is sort of like a disengage skill. So if you don't just spam your S3 randomly, right, it's very difficult for the enemy assassin to jump onto you, especially when you have ultimate to disengage also. Also, he differs from the other marksman that he does not need to build attack speed item. A lot of these marksmen, right, they are bad. Their early game is horrible because they are sort of fixed to an attack speed item, and attack speed, like the scaling is good with attack speed item, but in the early game is fairly horrible. But with loong, right, you don't build attack speed, you build cooldown reduction item, which is gives him a lot more tankiness compared to other marksmen out there. Also gives him a lot more damage potential. He's able to pop off better than all the other marksmen out here, which requires attack speed item. Loong can pop off with just 2 full items, while most of these marksmen require 3 full items. Right, also with the nerf to the attack speed pierce item, it used to be 40%, now it only gives 30%. Loong has a 40%, uses the 40% pierce item. So yeah, I would say his damage potential is equal to all of these guys. His ability to do burst damage is crazy, better than all of these guys out there, but his consistent damage is definitely not lacking behind any of these guys as well. Because in the late game, if you build cooldown reduction item on him, his skills are going to be on a fairly short cooldown, so you can just keep spamming those skills. His S3 is ready every like 6 seconds or so. So every 6 seconds, he basically can disengage once from an enemy assassin or anybody that's trying to jump on him. So yeah, he has a lot of survivability. And because of his ability to do huge amount of burst damage and his massive survivability. Alright, as I was saying, like because of his super high survivability, his super high ability to disengage from assassins, and his non-reliance on his support, he's very strong early game, and his good consistent damage potential in the late game. He can basically one-shot the enemy squishy late game as well. It's crazy if he builds full AD items. I don't think any other marksman have the ability to one-shot somebody, and he one-shot somebody without any kind of skill. You just need to press his S1, which is an auto lock skill, and press an empower auto attack, which is also an auto lock skill, and then you can just one-shot somebody. It's absolutely crazy. So I personally think that Loong is the best marksman out there. Yeah, because of his consistency, when compared to arli, right, he's more consistent than her, and she has also higher burst damage than arli. Alright, next marksman. Okay, auto ban in peak mode. Pretty much every game Loong is banned, and if Loong is not banned, I will swap positions with the marksman just so that I can play Loong, because it's absolutely crazy. I don't want to give him to the enemy. He's also the marksman that I play a lot when trying to complete my missions. I pretty much play him in the casual 5v5 mode every time I have the chance to play him, marksman. So yeah, that's a testament to how strong he is. Right, next we'll talk about Luara. Even the recent buff, I think she's in C tier. I'm not sure if she's below or above Erin, but she definitely is in the C tier. I would say she's not good at all. Her kit is very clunky. Even with her S1 and S2, while her S1 and S2 is active, she does less damage compared to a lot of other marksmen out there. And then her S1, it allows her to jump over obstacle, yes, but it also has a very long cooldown. I think she's better than Erin. Let me see. No, maybe she and Garo might swap places. I might do something like this. She has a bit of survivability because with the recent changes to her, you can shorten the cooldown but just by landing hits. So you can spam her S1 a lot more and try to jump over obstacle to kite the enemy. But I'm sorry, her damage dealing potential is just not there. I don't think she deals a lot of damage, even when she lands all her ultimate or her S1, and when her passive is up, she's not doing that much damage for some reason. Also, she has less survivability skills compared to a lot of these other marksmen. And the S1, I would say, is not really a dash. it's too unreliable to be a dash. And usually you use it to chase the enemy and deal damage rather than use it as a disengage skill. Because if you save your S1 for disengage, sure, you can use the obstacle to run away from the assassin. That is, if the assassin doesn't have another dash to get over the wall. But assuming they don't, you pretty much cannot use your S1 and you'll be dealing so little damage that is almost negligible. You need your S1 to deal damage, but you also need your S1 to dodge the enemy at the same time. So you need your S1 to hit a baseline amount of damage that the other marksman can easily reach on their own in the late game. So what's the point? Like, what's the point of using her? She doesn't really have any standout area, and the damage is lacking compared to all these other marksmen. And when she uses S1, then her damage reaches a baseline level. So why are you using her? I guess there's a lot of better picks out there, but at least she has a disengage skill, unlike Garo over here. And I think she still does more consistent damage compared to Erin. So I'll give her the bottom of B tier. Her problem is that she doesn't have any standout area. It's too easily bursted down by assassin. Does not have very consistent survivability skill. Luban can melt tanks. That's it. Okay, a good Luban will not just randomly spam his S2. You can use your S2 to secure kills, but that will require tapping onto minimap a lot. I've seen good Lubans out there who can aim S2 like crazy and kill a low HP enemy even without their vision. So yeah, that's a good thing about his S2. Problem is that he suffers from the same problem of any other this low rank marksman out there, is that he lacks any kind of mobility skill. Mobility skills are so important in solo queue. He's way too reliant on his support. At least if you save his S2, right, you can use it to knock the enemy backwards. But once you do that, you have no skill to sort of save yourself from any other incoming enemies jumping onto you. So his survivability is extremely low, but he has a one standout area, the same as Houyi over here. He has one standout area, is that his early game damage potential is higher than Houyi, and his late game damage, burst damage and consistent damage are also higher than Houyi. So he has probably the highest late game damage out of everybody here, and their early game damage is also the highest, one of the higher ones among the marksmen here. So he's able to dominate his lane in the early game quite a bit. So once he's within range of his tower, right, he's pretty safe. So in the early game, he doesn't need to worry about ganks as much. But once the tower is down, is where the game really starts, right? But once he's at that point, he you need his mid game, I would say, is where he's the weakest. His early game is fairly strong thanks to his dominance in the lane, so he's able to push minion waves out and prevent them from crashing into his own tower. But the problem is the mid game. Once your tower is down, or their tower is down, then you have to rotate to the mid lane, or move to another lane with the tower on. If you don't have the tower on your lane to back into, then it's very easy for you to die to assassin. So once you get to a late game, then you'll start popping off a lot better than all the other marksmen here. You have a huge range thanks to his passive, and he's also able to melt tanks. Because of his two standout area, right, I'll put it over here, just above Houyi. Because Houyi has as low survivability as him, but I'll say he has a better standout than Houyi, because Houyi has his ultimate. He has his S2 and his crazy ability to melt tanks. But these two are comparable, I would say, thanks to low survivability. And in solo queue, survivability is king, I would say. That's why they will not go any higher than B tier. But when I have a Luban on my team, right, I'll pay special attention to a Luban. I'll help him. I'll play a Liang or some kind of other CC unit, and I'll pay attention to a Luban, unlike some of the other marksmen here. So I guess in a way, people know that Lubans require protection, because like in China, like people has a saying like people has this weird saying. This is a bit off topic, but isn't I don't know if it's a slang. It's like a meme. People meme that like we can lose the game, but Luban must die. That's the direct translation. So everybody knows that Luban is super prone to assassin, super prone to the enemy. I mean the enemy ganking him. So your teammate will actually pay special attention to Luban if you pick him. So I guess that's another bonus to Luban. So if your teammate actually is more focused on protecting you, right, then Luban can reach his late game a bit better and then pop off. So I guess because of the meme, he maybe is the top of B tier, I would say. His teammate is more willing to get him to the late game because Luban is memed as a late game cannon, a glass cannon, but he's also known for his like deaths, how many deaths that people can rack up on him. So I guess your own teammate will try to defend you a bit more. So because of the meme, I put him over to the top of B tier. Okay, next marksman will be Marco. I would say Marco is bottom of S tier. He's definitely better than direnjie, I would say. Unfortunately, he's very dependent on the handler. His mechanic is fairly complicated. It's very difficult to land his S1 consistently. Same as arli over here. His attack range is a lot less compared to other marksmen to compensate for his mobility skills. So that's a major downside of Marco. But his ult is so impactful in team fights that I can't justify placing him any lower than S tier. He can bring a purify and he can even bring a stun because of his S2 being a dash, so it doesn't need flicker. So he can use his purify against like the enemy units that require you to bring purify, like a Xuanze or like a Princess Frost. Alright, then you can just go purify Marco. Alright, very versatile. You can build different items on him. You are not affixed to a certain build like all of these marksmen here. So if the enemy have a lot of magic attack, then you can build an early magic defense item. I like this guy's build. It requires the 3 standard ADC item at the start. Marco, because of his ability to deal true damage, doesn't need a pierce item, so you can use that slot for additional defensive item. Yeah, just because of crazy mobility, crazy potential, teamfight potential of his ultimate, he gets to be an S tier, but still not as high as these guys because he is, I would say he's on the same level to play as arli. He is very difficult to play, but he's less rewarding compared to this guy. His early game also is less than all these 3 guys. He only pop off in the late game. His early game is very lacking, and because of that, he is sitting at the bottom S tier. He can deal very easily with a tank. Alright, in AoV, right, his counterpart is Hayate, and Hayate is known for doing very well with tanks. Alright, same with Marco. Because of his kiting skills, he can deal very well with tank units, but he deals very badly with range support. Alright, if your support is a Liang or Lady Zhen, he deals very badly with them because of his incredibly short range compared to all the marksmen out there. So as long as you know how to counter Marco, he has a weakness to range support. These 2 guys has no counter. You can't use a range support against them. I guess you can use Liang against Lady, this guy over here, yeah. But she counters a lot of major support as well thanks to her S2. Marco is just weak to major support. So if you see a Marco on the enemy team and you have support, try not to play a tank. Try to make your lineup a bit more squishy, but a bit more sort of assassin focused, a bit more mage focused. Alright, try not to build tank items and try to burst him down. Yeah. Let's see. Next will be mengya, I guess. I don't see any other ADC. Oh no, this baili. Okay, let's go mengya next. Oh my god. Yeah, easily the most horrible marksman at the moment. His ultimate is just that as a speed boost. It cannot really hit people. You cannot really land ultimate on people because it's so slow, and you get like a huge symbol at the bottom of your character, like 2 seconds or 3 seconds before it actually lands, so you can immediately dodge that. You don't even need a dash skill to dodge that because it's so slow. You can just walk out of it. It's so difficult for him to land his ultimate. And he has no defensive skill. His ultimate is a speed boost, that's it. His S1, S2 are not defensive skill, so he dies super easily. He has also less range compared to a lot of marksmen. I believe he has like 25 range less than some of their marksmen out there, to compensate for his ability to shoot while moving, which I feel like is not that. It's kind of overrated. He has almost no survivability and he has no standout area. His ultimate is super useless. He's sort of like these guys over here, but without any standout areas. So that's why he's sitting comfortably at bottom tier. No, actually I will put him over here. Please don't use him. I wouldn't say he's troll tier, but he's definitely the weakest marksman out there by far. Let's talk about baili next. Baili is certainly not here. He is here. Okay, actually above Marco. Why? He himself is okay. But he brings one super huge boon to his team. Unlike any of these other marksmen out there, these marksmen don't provide any benefit effects to their team. Baili does one major benefit effect is that he can give vision to the team by placing his grenades or whatever those landmines down. Alright, he can put those down in strategic position to reveal the location of the enemy map, and that not just benefit himself but also benefit his team as well. And that's actually a huge boon, a lot more than people give him credit for, because having knowledge of an enemy's position in the late game is so useful. Also, that can be used to counter a lot of enemy assassins out there, enemy invisible units out there, and also enemy assassins, because once an assassin is revealed, it's very difficult for them to jump onto people. So he also has a fair bit of survivability. After a rework, he does good consistent damage now. In the past, he used to do very bad consistent. You have to choose between consistent damage or burst damage. Most people go for the burst damage route, and they do very horrible consistent damage. After his rework, a lot more people built him attack speed item focused, so he certainly do less burst damage. His S2 does a lot less damage now. He can one shot people a lot less now, but he gets so much more consistent damage. And his range, another boon is his range. He has absolutely crazy range. Alright, every time you level his ultimate, his range increases, so he outrange any other marksman out there just by default. If you build the item that gives you attack speed range, you can get crazy attack speed range with him, and then you can just hit enemy from so far away from the map. And he also has 3 dashes on ultimate. The standout part of him is that if you don't use your S2 to snipe the enemy, which most people nowadays don't in the late game, because your S2 actually scales a lot lower than your auto attack in the late game. So rather than using your S2, like in the past, people use the auto attack a lot more. So your bullet is actually there as a disengage tool. So people usually have 2 to 3 charges of ultimate dash. So you are able to get away from assassin. So he has very high survivability as well, same as all of these other marksmen. All of these marksmen over here are very mobile, that's why they are all in S tier. The same with baili. And he does more consistent damage than Marco, I would say. And it's a lot easier to operate compared to Marco. And also of his ability to provide a huge boon to his team by placing down landmines seems to comfortably in the S tier. I would say he might even be better than arli, I would say. Yeah, I would like baili on my team a lot more than arli because of his ability to reveal the enemy on the map. Yeah. So very popular pick in high elo. This guy is permaban. These two guys are these three guys are actually very popular pick in high elo. Alright, this guy is situational. You still do see him around, but he's used to as a counter pick against the enemy more than like a first pick. Alright, let's go to Huangzong next. Okay, this will be controversial. This will be very controversial. But I am placing him bottom S tier. I think he is actually super underrated. Okay, I play Huangzong a lot. He's the marksman that I main besides Loong. In casual, I always play Loong because obviously I think Loong is stronger than Huangzong and any other marksman out there. But if Loong is not available, like I'll always play Huangzong. Because he does a crazy amount of consistent damage. He has no burst damage basically, but his consistent damage is crazy. You can stack crit, which is super important. Once you get 5 stacks, right, you get a crazy amount of crit damage, like 15% crit damage and a bunch of attack damage. So if you have 5 stacks, you do a crazy amount of damage with your auto attacks. Alright, he does need 3 items to pop off, but once he does, right, he has the highest consistent damage dealing potential anywhere in the game, of any marksman in the game. And you can also use your landmine as sort of like a discounted landmine, like Baili's landmine. He can store 2 charges instead of 3 charges on his landmine, but honestly that doesn't matter too much. If you put your landmine in strategic position, right, it acts the same way as him. His landmine is that he can reveal the entire bush itself. He can provide the vision for the entire bush and not just like a tiny radius around the landmine. So if you put them in strategic position, you can achieve the same result as this guy over here. Because of his ability to reveal the enemy location, right, that is also like a huge boon for the team. And he deals very consistent damage. And I'll argue that he has a lot of survivability. Yes, he has 1 dash after his rework, right? His ultimate is a dash. I see so many people playing him wrongly because they use his ultimate forward to deal damage to the enemy or to chase rather than to disengage. I use Huangzong's ultimate purely as a disengage tool. I pretty much never in the early game use Huangzong's ultimate to chase the enemy unless they are really low. That's an exception. But I almost never use his ultimate to chase the enemy unless I have knowledge of where the assassins are. Alright, I'll always use Huangzong's ultimate as a disengage tool because it is a short range dash. It allows you to actually go over walls. Alright, but also it provides to you a pretty decent amount of magic and physical defense. So that allows you to actually tank through an enemy assassin. A full combo by the enemy assassin. Also I built like 16 lifesteal arcana on him. Alright, so crazy amount of consistent damage. You can use your ultimate as a disengage tool against the assassin. As I mentioned before, it's a dash. It's sort of like a mini dash. You don't have a lot of range with it, but you can use that to go over walls. So you can avoid somebody like Kaiser chasing after you, or Yang Jian chasing after you. Anybody without a dash, you can use your ultimate to sort of go around them. And then there's 2 benefits of having an ultimate. I already talked about the first one. The first one is that you get a huge magic defense and physical defense buff. I believe it's 180 in the early game and 360 in the late. 360. That's crazy. I don't know if the number is lesser nowadays after he's been nerfed a few times last year, but it used to be 360 magic damage defense, which is crazy. That's like 1 item. Like even 240 is a pretty good amount. It gives you a bunch of survivability against marksman without any percentage pierce item. So because of that, he has quite high survivability. And also, I think most people forget that when he uses his ultimate, right, it now resets his S1. So you can use his ultimate as sort of like a mobility tool just to get away. Let's say if you are running away from the enemy chasing after you, you can use your ultimate to go jump over a wall. Right, let's say the mid lane bush. Let's say, look at my cursor here. Let's say this is the mid lane, right? This is a mid lane bush, the enemy side of the bush, and then you have your mid lane bush over here, and then this is the side of a bush here. You can actually run along here. Use your S1. First charge your S1 to run along here. Use your ultimate to jump over the wall into your own bush over here, and then your S1 will reset, and you can use your S1 to again to run away. So you don't necessarily need to sort of stay on the spot with your ultimate to counter attack on the enemy. You can also choose to use your S1 to just run away. And you can run a fair bit of distance using your S1. Alright, so that's why I think that people are actually playing him wrongly. He has a lot of survivability, but because people are using their ultimate to chase the enemy, right? That's why people think that Huangzong has no survivability skill, survival ability at all. But if you don't use your ultimate to chase, it actually doubles up as a very good like survival skill. So I've been playing that way with huangzong ever since I've started playing with huangzong, and then I find a lot of success with that. So he certainly has weakness as well. He doesn't really have a very long dash, so you have to you cannot really use Purify with him. You pretty much have to use Flicker with him. Also, ultimate, I forgot to mention, his ultimate gives him a crazy amount of range. And if you combine with the item that gives you the attack range, right? I think he's pretty much the marksman who can achieve the highest amount of attack range of any other marksman out here, even more than baili. Yeah, so because of his huge range, his huge damage potential at the end, his pretty good survivability skill, pretty good disengage with his ultimate, I have to put him S tier. He's not as good as these guys over here. Actually, you know what? Let's put him on top of Marco. Let's make it as controversial as possible. Personally, I think he's on top of Marco. The thing about him is that he does not need any skill. You don't need any skill of him. He basically just uses S1 and S2 to... We pretty much only use his S1 to deal damage to the enemy, and his S2 to scout the enemy's position. You don't need any kind of mechanical skill with him. Marco and arli requires a crazy amount of mechanical skill. And baili requires a bit of mechanical skill as well. Huangzong requires none of this. Alright, he's the same as Loong, but with a bit less survivability. Yeah, so I would say he's definitely a super underrated marksman, and my favorite marksman of... Okay, my favorite marksman is probably Loong, but he's my second favorite marksman. I think he's super underrated. A lot of people are playing him wrong. And so I think this is all my overall tier list. Is there anything I want to change here? Let's put Luara down to C tier. There's too many people in the B tier. I'll say this is a good tier list. This is for solo queue, by the way. I don't know about Garo's positioning in duo queue or trio queue. Probably a lot higher, but I can only put her here in C tier in solo queue because of her low survivability. There's a common trait among all of these marksmen in the B, C, and D tier, is that they lack survivability or lack consistent damage. They're either lacking one of these two things. Alright, if you look at all the marksmen over here, they all suffer from one of these two areas. Lady Sun does not have that much consistent damage or survivability. I'll say she's fairly mediocre in all field. She doesn't really have a standout in my opinion. Her ultimate is also fairly avoidable. Yeah, all of these marksmen pretty much suffer from one of these two things. All of these marksmen over here don't suffer from those things. Direnjie doesn't have any standout area, but is mediocre in all fields, which is why I can't justify playing him in B or S tier. He's just squarely decent. Maybe let's put Luban up here. No, Luban has to be B tier maybe because he has a way too glaring weakness. In solo queue, not having any survivability skill is a huge flaw, so I can't justify placing him in A tier. This guy all have survivability skills and all deal a fairly good damage or have some good teamfight potential or provide some kind of utility to their teammate, like these two guys over here. Okay, so that was my marksman tier list. I don't think I'm missing anybody here. My position for Huangzong might be a bit controversial, but I believe strongly in his position. Again, if you use your ultimate always to just... If you use your ultimate forward and always try to use your ultimate to chase the enemy, then he easily goes down to here. But if you use your ultimate as a fairly defensive way, alright, then he's going to be up here. So yeah, that's my overall tier list. Okay, I will see you guys in my next mage video. Bye for now.